we also wanted to do is try to give you some new things to think about as it relates to peer review sites. Because I have a hypothesis here. And these guys kind of agree with me, I think, because I've explored it with each of them preparing for this session, is that we feel that customer marketers and customer advocacy people are not necessarily taking advantage of all the power that peer review sites have in terms of incorporating it into your overall marketing strategy, in terms of thinking beyond just the goal of getting, hey, if I get 10 5-star reviews this quarter, I'm a hero and I'm done. Boom, boom, that's it. Right? There's so much more potential, and that's what we're here to explore today. So rather than have me talk about that, though, I said, let's go to the horse's mouth and get people representing the 3 leading peer review sites, in my opinion, to come and share their insights. And so I've got a couple of questions teed up that I'm going to ask of the panel, but then we're going to have plenty of time for you guys to ask your questions as well. So start thinking about what you want to ask. Okay? Who's thinking right now? Who might have a question to ask of our panel? Okay, just want to make sure you guys are thinking. So where I want to start, and I know I did a lot of research on buyer behavior at Forrester when I was an analyst there, and since then, and I'm fascinated by the buyer journey and what influences buyers as they move through their journey. And we all know peers and fellow customers have a huge amount. But what I'd really like to do is have each of you talk a little bit about, each of your companies I know either has done actual research on how do review sites influence buyer behavior, when in the journey, and at what point, and what types of questions are they looking to answer, or you've got anecdotal stories about how it influences. So, but before we even jump into that, let's do just a quick round of introductions. Why don't we start with you, Palmer, at the end. Introduce yourself, tell us your name, company, and your role.
Sure thing. Hey everybody, I'm Palmer Houchins. I'm the Vice President of Brand Marketing and Communications at G2. Thanks for having me.
Hi everybody, my name is Doni Lerner. I'm the VP Strategy at IT Central Station. I'm also really happy to be here.
Hi everyone, my name is Allyson. I'm the VP of Marketing at TrustRadius, and so really excited to talk about this and talk about how we can really leverage review platforms.
All right. So getting back to now talking about influence and how it influences buyers, because how many of you think you have a really good grasp on how buyers use review sites? When, why, how, what they look for, how much time they spend there. Gentlemen? Okay. Yeah, we spend a lot of our effort thinking about getting those 5-star reviews out there. And so that's what we want to illuminate a little bit here. So why don't we start, we'll start with you, Allyson, and go this way this time. Just tell me from your perspective, from your company's primary research, or whatever it may be, what's your take on how they influence buyers in the buying process?
Yeah, so even taking a step back, so we have a research team in-house, and they're amazing. And I'm pretty new at TrustRadius, and I was actually on the vendor side, and so when I was interviewing at TrustRadius, I found out we had this research team. I'm like, oh my gosh, and they were creating all these amazing reports about the buyer journey and how it was changing. And so taking a step back, I think we have to look at some stats where it's like 60% of the buyers that are tech buyers are millennials. And so if you think about who a millennial is, they grew up in the internet age, they grew up with social media, they want to self-nurture, they want to find information from their peers. And then within that kind of buyer demographic, also, this is pretty controversial, but in our research, we found only 20% of them actually are using analyst reports. They're actually not even really using case studies either. And so what are they doing to self-nurture, right? They're going to review platforms, they're going to their peers, and that's where and they're also going to your website, right? So those are the 3 most used resources for research for millennials. And so I think when you're thinking about the buyer journey, you really need to think about the demographics and how that's changing. Because we've seen these trends year over year continue. More millennials in the buying community and less of them want to use the classic channels.
Cool. So I completely agree with Allyson, of course. I wanted to quote some different, more anecdotal stories, because I think there's a lot of information out there about the role of reviews in the buying cycle. So I want to get a little more qualitative here. So I pass these out to everybody on the first day. These are just reviews. Every time we collect reviews, we ask our customers, you know, how did they make the decision? How did that buying process go? And so often they'll actually mention reviews as part of the buying process. So this is an IT manager, networks and cloud infrastructure at a government. It says, we chose Firemon because of its cost, simplicity, as well as its deployment and provisioning. We read reviews like this one and we're quite confident because of what they described as their use and what their outcomes were, right? So it's both, it's not just that reviews are important in the buyer's journey, in the buying cycle, it's how are they being used? It's not just a checkbox to say, should I look into this company or that company? When you're telling real customer stories in an authentic way and with an authentic voice, you have the power to actually influence the end decision. It's not just about, you know, do you rank well? How many reviews do you have? Look at that qualitative information in the reviews, and that's where you're getting real influence.
So I think the first thing that I would say is that you've got 3 competitive companies up here who are largely saying the same thing. We have proprietary research that's sort of backing it all up. So I think it's sort of, we're all arriving at this same idea that the buying process isn't as linear as it used to be. There's younger folks influencing it. And we actually polled, I think over the summer, like 700 software buyers, did a little software buyer research report, and what we found was sort of interesting. And I think one of the areas that we all agree on is reviews are highly influential in that, like 90% of folks use them as they're evaluating software purchases. But where I think it becomes really, really interesting is when you start layering that in with trust and just how much folks trust reviews to sort of guide them through that process. And so one of the things that really stood out to me in the research we published in September was folks are starting to not trust vendor websites quite as much. Obviously, they're a big part of the process. Folks are going to continue using them, but they think that they might be slightly misleading. And so I think that's where peer reviews can just serve a really great purpose of guiding folks. And the other big area that I would sort of call attention to that goes a little bit counterintuitive, a lot of times, and I know I'm talking to a room of customer marketers, so you can say, of course this is true, but I think a lot of times when we're talking to vendors, reviews are really what's going to get you across the hump to actually, you know, first use a software. But I think they're hugely influential in renewals, and you'll a lot of times see that coming up of, all right, in our own buyer intent data, folks are comparing us to who else is in you know, folks in our competitive set. So I think all of that is just different areas that we should lean into and be mindful of as we're assessing kind of peer review.
So let's dig a little deeper, building on your trust angle there, Palmer, because in my buyer interviews that I've done over the years, one of the things I found is that it's not just who has the most 5-star reviews is the winner on a review site. In fact, speaking of trust again, a lot of people have told me they don't trust a 5-star review where everything is just perfect and glowing because they know somebody was probably paid to write that or it's fake. Think about it, you go on TripAdvisor, you see this 5-star review, this resort was just amazing, everything about it, and you know that those resorts are scamming and having people write fake reviews. And so what I've actually found in this research is people said, when I asked how did the review site influence you, they said, well, we went there when we had our 2 finalists because we wanted to read the 1- and 2-star reviews because we wanted to see if there were any red flags that we should be aware of for any of these vendors. So maybe we mix it up a little bit and say, what are some of the other ways that they actually do it? So that was one scenario that I gave. First of all, do you agree with that? Have you heard people actually use it for that? And then, you know, what are some other examples like that that we might not think of when we tend to just think, we just need more 5-star reviews? So why don't we start with you? Yeah.
Sure. So I think one of the things that we often try and compress everything into these sort of binary topics. How do you use reviews? Oh, you go and you see they have a good rating and then you move on, right? I know certainly for our platform, we have really long, detailed reviews, and one of the things that we hear consistently, so we'll actually call up a lot of the IT buyers and folks that are coming to use our site, and we'll ask them how did they use these reviews in their buying cycle. And the thing that they say over and over again is, I don't care about how many reviews the customer had. I don't care about what the rating was. I want to understand the use case from somebody that I believe. I want to understand the integrations. I want to understand that qualitative data, the full story of how this person used the product. We all, as marketers, often put way too much stock in just the number of reviews and the number of ratings, because those are easy things to report up on, but that's not the way buyers are using the sites from many, many conversations.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to the in-depth reviews and really using that content, and like, it's not about the quantity and kind of gamifying and being at the top of whatever quadrant to me, right? Like, and I think it's more about having those quality reviews and customizing them to highlight the use case and features that you want to be known for. And so we see a lot of our clients that we work with that, you know, they customize all their questions, they think about the customer and the use cases that they want to highlight on TrustRadius or wherever they are. I also think it's about kind of like a repository of review sites, because if you think about it, you know, each one has like their specialty. And so if you are only kind of gamifying and trying to kind of run that treadmill of reviews and stars and whatever else, then you're kind of missing out on the rest of your audience. So we've done some analysis where we have very little overlap, and we tend to kind of skew towards the mid-market and enterprise. So if you're just kind of running that review treadmill, you're not really capturing the rest of the eyeballs that you should be looking at too, or that should be looking at you. So that's just something to think about, is like, review sites isn't really one and done. I think of it more as a repository, and that's how I thought about it when I was on the vendor side. It's like, hey, I want to capture as many eyeballs as I can and turn review sites into a marketing channel.
I think, oh, do we have a question?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah. I'd love to hear kind of from your three point of view what your sweet spots are in the market, because I'm looking at segmenting my kind of customers and reviews, and my head is spinning about how to go after, you know, the 6-7 different review sites. So I'd love to review site for review.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we do. Marissa, thank you for setting the stage. That was actually going to be our next topic, but I want Palmer just to share
Yeah,
the
sure.
perspective you have on sort of unique uses
No,
of how people use review sites that this audience may not be aware of.
This, you know, you may call me boring for thinking this is good, like, dinner table conversation, but I think it's interesting to ask folks, just to like overlay our B2B sort of business lives with our consumer personal lives. Like, how do you use review sites? And I think there's just a natural distrust for 5-star reviews up and down. So to that point, it's not really about the quantity of that. It is about sort of the quality and the depth of those. But I think if you dovetail it another way, we had this conversation the other day actually, where some folks go in and zoom in on the 1 and 2 stars, like, I want to know what's wrong. And that's like, my wife is that person when it comes to consumers. It's like, I can go to the restaurant or the hotel and just look at the worst review they have. I'm more of the aggregate guy, so it's like, I want to look at it across all of them. I'm going to like do some math to average it out. And so, you know, I'm putting myself in the sort of B2B software space. It's like, well, I'm going to see G2, IT Central Station, TrustRadius. I want to see how this vendor is doing on all of those, because there's going to be different perspectives brought up and different folks who are comfortable there. So I think for me, it's more about figuring out what that aggregate is and how you can use them, and less about, oh, I've got 36 here and 47 over here. No one really cares what the number is. It's more about the depth of the review.
Actually, one more thing to add on that. Yeah, this is actually a conversation I've had with a bunch of people also, where you're getting pressure from your C-level executives that, hey, we have to have 5-star ratings. How many 5-star reviews are you going to get? We have to be the highest rated product in the category. And what people don't realize often is that if you have a listing that shows, oh, hey, it's a perfect 5 or it's 4.9 out of 5, nobody believes that. And if you sit and you think about it and you start to read through the content, you'll also know that that's true. There are a lot of places where, you know, everybody's got full 5-star reviews, and when you see that, you know that that's not trustworthy. Like on our site, when I look at the average, you know, ratings, you know, 4.2 out of 5 stars is a strong product. The best products have 4.4 on average, 4.3 on average. Right? Don't shoot for that all 5-star, because people read through the 5-star reviews with a much bigger grain of salt than they read through the 3 and 4 star reviews.
So who here has been asked by their leadership team or their boss, or how many have they've come to you and said, we need more 5-star reviews? Okay, so I'm giving you some ammunition here with our expert panel to counteract that. So please take note of that, that it's not all about the 5-star reviews. There's just so much more. I do want to, let's just go through a couple more questions. Marissa obviously wants us to not be so agreeable with what you know, because I think we've all agreed that, you know, it's the quality over the quantity, it's the depth of use cases. And what I like to say is buyers want a crystal ball into what life is going to be like as a customer, and that's how they get it, is they want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And they're never going to believe that everything's perfect. They know there's going to be hiccups. They know there's going to be challenges. They just want to know what to anticipate and not be surprised. And so that's where well-written reviews and do all of that. All right, so now should we bring the gloves over there, Kaylee? Or no? So now I do want to give you each. I want to give you each an opportunity to talk about what is your special sauce, because you're not all identical. You play kind of come at it from different perspectives, different strengths. And help me, Marissa, if there's anything else you want to add to my question there, since you provided the segue. Is that good? Like their special sauce.
And market size too, like I know we said mid-market enterprise, like they're stronger sizes or industries that might lend itself better to your sites.
Yeah. Want to start with you, Palmer?
Yeah, so at G2, I mean, I would say that breadth is one of our core strengths. We, have over, I think, 100,000 different software platforms on the site. I'd say, are we stronger or more numerous sort of in the SMB and mid-market side versus that? I mean, obviously we have lots of enterprise clients and we want to continue growing those, but that's where our sort of de facto side is. But we're really, built to represent everything in the B2B software space. And so for us, it's about being as broad as we can and encompassing that.
So we actually should have switched because it's sort of like a spectrum from G2 TrustRadius to us. If you look at our secret sauce as a platform, sorry just for this question. If you look at our secret sauce,
here we go.
And it's not good or bad. It's just the way we approach things, right? If you look at our secret sauce as a platform, it all comes down to the way we collect reviews. So we collect reviews by having phone interviews with your customers at scale. So and we record those, we transcribe them into reviews for you. So the average review that we're producing with our customers is around 1,500 words. We customize the questions to make sure that they're in line with the topics that are going to be important and valuable for you as a marketing organization. So if you look at the sort of spectrum, the kinds of reviews you'll see on G2 or Gartner, it's around 100 words. Kind of reviews on TrustRadius around 400 words, correct me if I'm wrong. And on IT Central Station, 1,500 words. We're very focused on doing everything that we do with the highest level of quality. We focus on mid-market and enterprise. 80% of our traffic is from companies 500 employees and above. And we have a very high-touch customer success service that not just helps you collect the reviews, but will actually create a lot of derivative content for you and help you use that within all the different stakeholders you have within the marketing and sales organizations. So full service, high quality.
Yeah, so like I said, at TrustRadius, we skew mid-market and enterprise. So a lot of our customers that are coming to us are trying to, be the disruptors in the market, and they're trying to capture those mid-market and enterprise software buyers. Much like you were saying, we customize questions. So we have over 60 plus custom questions that you can pull from. We also have a research team in-house that helps you build out those custom questions, like I said, so you can really highlight the use cases and features that you want to be part of like your overall narrative. And so that's how I really think, and when I was on the vendor side and I was building out our TrustRadius strategy, I started to think of like, okay, what are all the use cases that we want to be known for? Who are the customers that are actually using us and using our product like that? And so I started to map that all out and had a very targeted strategy to make sure that our reviews were part of our overall brand narrative. And I think TrustRadius really allows you to do that. Also in tandem with our research department, we also have a really hands-on customer success team that's teaching you how to take all, like, you have this amazing review that you spent all this time sourcing. So how are you going to take all of those reviews and use it for SEO? How are you going to use that in your content? How are you going to use that on your landing pages to increase conversions, etc.? So our customer success team are really like essentially kind of consulting, right? Marketing consultants is the way I think about them. And when we do that kind of in-depth content, what we've been saying on TrustRadius is that people are spending 10 to like 12 minutes on a page comparing products. Who spends more than 2 seconds on a website besides a social platform? So it's really interesting to see that, and in having that kind of influence of people really digging down into those reviews and trying to figure out, like Jeff was saying, trying to figure out, one, is this the right software for my business, where I'm at my sophistication level for my team, and two, where are the gaps and how do I plan for that? So people are really digging into that content, and so you really want to optimize for that, and I think that's why TrustRadius really skews towards that mid-market and enterprise, because they have to do that in-depth analysis, so they are picking the right software. Because we all know, and all of the marketers here, you guys have built the tech stack, you know what it's like when you buy the wrong software, you implement it, you've wasted all this money, and now you're like kind of sitting there with this piece of technology that you can't use. So nobody wants to be in that situation, and so I feel like that's really where TrustRadius is helping a lot of the buyers.
And so very clear here, this ties into a lot of what we've been saying, what you've been hearing over the last 2 days. It's very similar to when you think about your own customer stories that you're gathering and curating, where you want to, I always use the word surgical, right? You need to be more surgical with the questions that you ask so that you elicit the right insights. I'll give you a good example, one that came up in our user group meeting on Monday, that somebody, one of the members was dealing with a challenge in the market that their software is sold into one functional department, and they're trying to figure out how to get it to expand into other departments. Okay, what's that? That's a strategic growth initiative of that company, is to expand across. Okay, I had to get that word in there. And so, but how, reviews, let's find out in the review questions, how did you drive growth or expansion from that initial department that first purchased the software to others? Because usually that first department wants to expand, if for no other reason than they can pass the tin cup and get funding, to help spread the funding for that software around. So that's really important. I'm glad you guys all brought that up. Are there any other questions related to kind of differentiating these guys and their specialties and suites? Yeah. Well, Erwin had his hand up earlier before this question, Dina, and then we'll come back to you. Erwin?
Do three vendors have any take on what percentage of the reviews are truly organic as opposed to sourced by the vendor or sourced by the customer?
Okay, so the question, great question. Do you have any sense on the percentage of reviews that are truly organic, meaning somebody came on their own volition to write this review, versus either sourced or pushed or invited or bribed to do it? Okay. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So I think when I don't have any particular stats on that. However, what I will say is that at TrustRadius, one thing that we really specialize in, and this is what our research team does, is the verifying all of the reviews. So whether they're coming in from organic, whether they're sourced from the vendor, or if we're helping them, right? There's so many sources coming in that we could definitely track that. And maybe Andrew, you have the stat from the research team on this, but what we really work hard on is verifying, because there's a huge level of fraud when it comes to review sites. And what we've been trying to do is we've started this technique called the honeypot, where we're trying to find the fraudulent reviews, because essentially that is like totally discrediting all of our review sites, right? If you have this high level of fraud on your site. So we work really hard to find people that are leaving fraudulent reviews, right? Take those down. I think the last stat that I heard is that we took down 36% of reviews that were pure fraud. And so that's, if you think about a volume-based business, that's like really detrimental if you're trying to get all these reviews and they're all fraud. However, I think it goes back to, what Danny was saying, and it's really about the quality and maintaining that sense of trust. Because the minute that you start sourcing all these reviews and they're fraud, right, that really, really hurts your reputation, and it also hurts the vendor's reputation as well. So something that we work really, really hard on is not necessarily where the review is coming from per se or how it was sourced, but making sure that it's valid and verified.
So I'll say around 98, 99% of the reviews are organic, meaning not pushed by the vendors on our site, somewhere in that with a small margin of error. We have a similar approach to making sure all the reviews on our site are 100% not fraudulent. Every single review before it actually goes live on our site is read over by a human being, and that person is looked into. You have to log in with a LinkedIn account or an email address from your company, or work email address, and it's still also not enough. So I'm going to share a tidbit with you guys that I think will actually be helpful. This happened to us with a live campaign with a customer. One of our customers, they IPO'd in the last year, was running a strong review campaign with us and with Gartner as well. And they were incentivizing people with gift cards in order to write the reviews on the site, and they did it on their end. We don't normally offer gift cards as a standard part of the process. And so about a week into the campaign, we came back to them and we said, hey, we didn't publish about 40 reviews that came in because they all came from 40 different companies from the same IP address in Kenya. And we're telling you this because you just gave out like $500 or $1,000 in gift cards to this person who's just taking advantage of your offer. So I would think about the way you structure your gift card if you're going to incentivize your customers to write reviews. We also done internal research that showed that when you're using like $10, $15, $20 gift cards as an incentive, what you tend to get, the people that bubble to the top to write those reviews tend to be the least valuable references for you. They're the people who are going to do something specifically for that gift card. So they're trying to find other ways to incentivize your customers to write the reviews rather than a direct cash value gift. So you can use like a raffle, or a lot of the ideas that folks have had here have been really, really great too. But try and stay away from the straight cash value gift, because that's where you get the motivation for somebody to come and write a fake review. Nobody's doing this for fun in their free time. They're doing it because $1,000 in a lot of places in the world is going to go a ridiculously long way for you.
So you guys stole all my thunder. I think before I get to this, I'm just going to agree that I don't have particular statistics on that one, but for me, what I would say is it doesn't really matter the source as much as the trust and authenticity part, and that's really what you want to be watching out for. At G2, we have an entire team that's dedicated to sort of upholding our reviews methodology and guidelines. So they're manually reading those, they're vetting, they're checking IP addresses, LinkedIn profiles to make sure that this person is actually a customer. And as long as those sort of guardrails and safeguards are in place, then we can create a reviews ecosystem that's like trustworthy to end users like you all, which I think is what we all want.
So are there actually like review writing troll farms out there that on social media?
Just go to YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. Dina, you've been very patient. What?
Yeah, this has been great. Such a fascinating panel, and here at Captivate, we are picking up everything that you were putting down. We believe in the value of a holistic review strategy that takes into account all of the players. We believe that it's not all about 5-star reviews. We believe in 5-star ratings. We should be skeptical. But the reality, the feet on the street, on the front lines with our clients, is a myopic, obsessive focus on Gartner peer insights, 5-star
repeat and summarize the question for the audience, because this is a doozy. We're gonna do a little Gartner adoption. Okay, all right, so again, I'm gonna summarize for us here then in the room. So there's this endless obsession for our executives for Gartner peer insights reviews because of the theory, I don't know if it's true or not, that it influences your placement on the Magic Quadrant. I know as an analyst that did Forrester Wave, we wanted to interview customers. We didn't look at any kind of peer reviews, but we didn't have a peer review site as part of our business. So feel free to bash Gartner or Gartner Peer Insights and differentiate yourselves for them, but also talk about how does our audience counteract that overwhelming, demand or perception that Gartner's all that matters, because I saw Gartner on slides during this session these 2 days more than anybody else. So, Palmer, since
yeah, sure. I'll start it off. I do think, that's a relatively new development from Gartner to use kind of peer reviews to inform that. I don't know exactly how they're weighted versus the analyst stuff there. I'll do that through the context of G2, where we actually put out our own grids, and they are influenced by reviews. This may not be the answer that you want to hear, but it's one that I'm going to take off my hat. I worked at 2 software companies before I came to G2 generating reviews. And I found some of the 3- and 4-star reviews that we got the most informative for getting 5-star reviews in the future of, hey, there's this thing wrong in the product side that we need to go fix, or our sales team approached this the wrong way, and let's go correct that, and we actually got better reviews, not from those same people, but from future users, because we addressed those. That's not going to necessarily get you to where you want to be from like a quarterly perspective, but I think long term, as long as you're really paying attention to the valid feedback you're getting in those reviews that aren't 5-star ones, you'll get those in the future. And worked with a client of ours here in the past 6 months to do something like that, where they initially had a few reviews that weren't what they wanted. Then we opened up sort of helped them address those needs on the product and sales go-to-market side. Started a review generation campaign for them after that, and they've seen really good results and really positive reviews from that.
So I'll add, because Palmer hasn't been here yet, so we have to say strategic growth initiatives, and then you answer the question. No, but that actually is part of my answer here, is that tied to strategic growth initiatives, right? If you play back the different things that you spoke about, all of them are brand concerns. Am I in the Magic Quadrant? What is the file? A lot of those are brand concerns from my perspective. I think we can talk about that later. A lot of those are ways of leveraging that authenticity for your brand. When you get to tying into the different initiatives of the company, the actual content that you produce in the review becomes much more impactful for everything that you want to do, right? So think about it from a few different perspectives, right? Talk about the content, and then talk about your customer advocacy resources. Probably the most powerful resource, the most valuable resource you all have is the customers willing to do advocacy activities for you, right? So you can invest, 50 or 100 or 1,000, whatever it is, to get to some arbitrary place on a quadrant somewhere, right? With us, for example, 10 reviews, 1,500 words each, 2,000 words each. That's full content for months and months and months to use in 30 different use cases, and I can rattle them off from here to tomorrow. But go to your sales team, ask them what are the most common objections you guys are encountering in market now. Let's customize the questions around the objections, right? Let's collect reviews that do objection handling directly for the sales team. Go to your social team, ask them what topics they need to talk about. Let's use the reviews as a great way to feed your social funnel. Go to product marketing. How do we need to differentiate our product over the next 6 months? Build reviews and the content within the reviews into the content roadmap, the content strategy for the company. Work with all the other stakeholders to understand how customer voice can potentially impact what they do, make their job easier, and make their narrative more impactful. And then it stops becoming about how many reviews and how many numbers, but more all of the different parts of the go-to-market strategy of your company that have been impacted by voice of customer.
So I think these people are all believers in what you said, but the one thing though, to just make sure we're answering Dina's question is, yeah, but there's still that endless obsession. About 12 years ago, I was CMO at a software company, and the CEO told me, we better be in that leader category or you're done. I mean, that's basically what he said to me. If you want to keep your job, you're going to get us in that leader category. So,
yeah, and I to kind of build off what Danny's saying and to take it a step further is that you turn a review platform into a marketing channel. And so you get out of, this 5-star review, we better be in that quadrant conversation, and you tie it to revenue. So what we've been seeing with a lot of our really successful clients is that, and it starts with customer marketing, so it starts with all of you, right? You're building this really robust presence on whatever review site it is. And to build off what Danny was saying, you're inserting it all into these channels. But what our successful customers are doing is now they're taking the intent data, working with the demand gen team, so you're tying yourself to revenue, right? And so you can say, hey, I built this amazing review presence, and even if it's not 5 stars, right, people are still looking at you, comparing you to your competitors. So you can go after those people that are looking at your product, that are down funnel, right? Or if they're going after your competitors, you do competitive takeout campaigns, you align yourself with your content team, your demand gen team, then you use that intent data, here's all the accounts that converted. There you go, right? You want to think about it as a marketing channel. You don't want to think about it as kind of this box that you have to check that is just kind of more of a branding reputation, right? You want to think of it as a pipeline building marketing channel, just like you would any other paid media. And so I think if you can take that conversation, align yourself to demand gen, content, social, and you're really the ringleader of it, because it all starts with really good content and getting those reviews. And then it's how you use those reviews, right? And so for example, we work with this company and they really worked hard on getting reviews and, like I said, like making sure it was highlighting the certain use cases. They got all these amazing customer quotes. They took all of our intent data. They saw all these people that were looking at their competitors. They built some creative around, like they used our top rated badge. They used customer quotes in that. They targeted all the people that were looking at their competitors, and they saw a huge return on investment. It was like a 30% increase in their return on ad spend. And it was all because they were using the platform as a marketing channel. And I think that's where you have to take the conversation to get out of that kind of star reviews and all of that. Like it makes it, it doesn't make it as a strategic growth engine like it should be.
And
I want to talk about Gartner
yeah,
for 1 second.
no, I want to let's keep the discussion going, because you just gave us a nice segue into how to be more strategic about our reviews. So if that's where you guys want to take it. That's where I want to take it. Okay, yeah, let's finish up on Gartner.
None of us are going to tell you it's not important to be in the Magic Quadrant if you have a Magic Quadrant for your category, right? This is not an either or kind of discussion. In general, if you ask me, you work with Gartner because you have to, you work with us because you want to. We're going to give you value and demonstrable ROI from working with us. We're going to power your marketing engine, et cetera, versus Gartner. Understand, they're influential. We get it. That's a thing.
Yeah, Palmer,
I've got one thing to add that's not Gartner specific, but my last 2 roles before G2, we were leaders. Like we were the leader in both categories that we were in. The pressure doesn't go away then. It was always like, how can we inch up further? How can we do better? So, even getting there, it's still sort of like, how are you going to maintain? And I think that idea of thinking about it as a marketing platform is one way to justify that.
So let me just add one more thing, being a recovering analyst. If your leadership believes that a bunch of 5-star reviews is going to be the difference between you being a leader or a laggard, then you suck at analyst relations. So, no, seriously. So don't think of Magic Quadrant as that one time where you ramp up your analyst relations and you schmooze and do everything you can to try to get yourself in that box. I can tell you as an analyst, this was one of the most frustrating things. I was covering the marketing automation space and all these kinds of marketing technologies and serving CMOs and doing a bunch of waves with partnering with other analysts. And the biggest frustration in that is that the vendors could not give us customers to talk about. And I did analyst relations for 20 years before becoming an analyst, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to, so I could be on the other side of the briefing table and poke holes in those the vendor strategies like the analysts do. And what I did is I always, throughout the year, I was constantly finding out what's on the research agendas of the analysts, and I was constantly servicing up customers to talk to those analysts. And that's where you guys come into play. Make sure you're working with your analyst relations team, and throughout the year, don't just wait for the magic quadrant request. You know, find out what's on the research agendas, find out who writes the magic quadrant or the wave, and present and surface up customers that they can talk to. Because customers like to talk to, and this was the thing. I would get them on the phone, and I was like, oh, and I would vent like, oh, thank God. I mean, I was waiting for 3 months for them to find somebody I could talk to. And they said, I love talking to you guys. I learn something every time I get on the phone with you, and that's true. So I just wanted to add that bit, you know, from the analyst perspective. So let me just see more questions here. Oh, yeah, questions from Zoom?
Yes. This is from Jill. She says, I feel like there's a ton of competition between these sites, and it can be super overwhelming for us as we're trying to allocate our already stretched resources. Are there any opportunities for partnerships between you guys and working in some type of complementary or tandem way? She says, if you all have unique strengths, could there be a way to drive reviews to one place and then disperse the input in some way? I have no idea what that would look like, but I'm curious if you guys recognize how difficult it can be to truly drive reviews on every site.
Can I just double down that for a second as well? Sorry, because I had this conversation with the head of digital demand last week, and he was like, we've got to be on G2, we've got to be on 3 other places, and like, we have 300 customer accounts total, so our focus is on enterprise, not everything else, because that's what the competitors do. We've got to figure out, so I think there's a lack of education in the marketplace about what you guys do, and all we hear from CMOs and people is, we've got to be on whoever's called them and managed to get through the BDRs, got through, that's who we get a call from, like, we've got to be on this site. It's super confusing. We don't, honestly, even we don't have time to try and figure out all the nuances between the different services you guys offer.
I think that's a really good point, and so I think it goes back to kind of what we were talking about earlier. Where is your target audience, right? If it's more on the SMB side, right, that makes sense to go with more of like a G2. If you're going for like the enterprise, right, that makes sense to go on TrustRadius. But also, I think it goes back to got that?
You can rebut.
Yeah. The gloves are still over there. Yeah. And so, sorry, I lost my thought where I was going with that. But anyways, the reviews, yes, thank you. Where is their audience? And so, when I think about that, I go back when I was in the vendor side of the house, it was a repository. So I was like, hey, we have a very small presence on G2 because we're not really SMB focused. When we were seeing the intent signals coming through, it wasn't really our target audience. And so we wanted to create a presence on TrustRadius because what we were seeing is that our competitors, right? So they started showing all the intent signals of competitors that were, so all these companies were looking at our competitors, and I honestly, there was like a moment where I was like, 3 of those accounts churned. And I lost my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, we have no presence on TrustRadius, and 3 of our accounts, they were clearly looking at our competitors and getting ready, and they were up for renewal. And so I think it's about really thinking, like, and talking to each of these platforms, understanding the audience, understanding where your competitors are, and then I also think it's, yes, you're really stretched in resources, and I totally understand that. I was in the same boat, and I think that's why you have to be super strategic with the use cases that you want to be known for, and sourcing those, and having those customers kind of align to that. And like it goes back to, if you really focus on quality and not quantity, then you actually are stretching your customer base, right? If you have 300 customers, you could easily get 10 reviews on TrustRadius, and that would give you the kind of amplification that you need to, one, use that content and use all the review content in all your other channels, and also get enough intent data to use that in your campaigns as well. So it's all about being like that, really thinking through that strategically of like where your audience is, how much content do I really need to build to actually use them as like I said, marketing channel. So that's how I would think about it.
We're enterprise too. Yes. So I mentioned before, 80% of our traffic is from companies 500 employees and above. We live and breathe the enterprise space. In addition to the focus on, we'll all agree, understand which platform has the right audience for you, and sometimes that may be multiple platforms. And the second thing you want to understand is, for what you're trying to accomplish with the platforms, which approach to the services that we offer is the right one for you. We all have a different suite of services and we have a very different way of going about things. For example, you'll see on other review platforms, it's often a race to how many reviews you can get, and there's lots of categories with many, many hundreds or thousands of reviews. On our site, I think the product that has the most reviews of any other product on our site is like 250. We're really, really into quality. You don't need 50 reviews or 100, or 50 is sometimes great, right? But you can do a lot with 10 reviews. 10 reviews, 10 interviews with your customers over the phone, really deep content that you can use really effectively throughout marketing. It's enough to influence people. So I'll say, first, understand where your audiences are. Then you should have a baseline of content wherever you have an audience. It's not all or nothing. You don't have to pick, send all of our people to this platform because, they rank, one more above in the search. That's not the way buyers look. We'll often find, buyers will go to multiple review platforms, and that's fine too, right? Every platform will have also a different audience. If we have, let's say, 8,000 people researching this space on our site, and G2 will have 12,000, and TrustRadius will have 15,000 researching in that category. Is 8,000 buying opportunities not worth 10 of your customers' time? 8,000 a month, right? When you start to think about people researching on a review platform as each one individually is an opportunity to sell your product, right? There's no other reason for people to be here. Our content is boring. Nobody reads a 2,000-word review of your product for fun. It's not going to help you do your job better. But if you're looking to buy that product, it's exactly what you want, right? You can't find better watering holes on the internet than the three of us right here. You should find enough customers to build up a baseline presence and then invest more where you think you can get more value.
Absolutely.
So I would echo everything that's just been said. One area that I might challenge the initial assumption on that is that I don't think it's just because our SDRs are calling that we're thinking about that. I think it's because there's a growing recognition that customer voice is invaluable in marketing, and that goes from top to bottom. So I think that's why you're seeing more of a conversation. That's why you see more review sites than you did 5-10 years ago. It's because there's value there. And then it starts again. I think it's about the end-to-end approach. G2, we do particularly well in SEO, so we're gonna score pretty high up there. And if that's important to you, then you want to start there. Maybe the content piece in terms of customer advocacy is a big piece, and that's where you need to be thinking about where you fit within the review sites, and then how you're leveraging that with intent signals and informing. So all of that goes together, but I think it's just there's a growing recognition from the enterprise on down that customer voice is important, and there's got to be a way to harness that.
Just to reiterate, the question was, is there any way to have a single point of entry?
The review syndication service.
There we go.
That's above my pay grade, I think. But what I would say is, I mean, if you're just looking for one place to go, I wouldn't trust that. Like, I mean, like that in my personal life, I want to read at least 3 or 4 review sites before I get that. I'm glad there's competition. I'm glad there's different perspectives. If it was the same reviews propagating across all of those, I think that defeats some of the value.
Right. I would say to the questioner, careful what you ask for, because the worst thing you can do is just homogenize everything. Because the point of the review sites is to help make things stand out and help you through the confusion and lack of visibility or clarity that you might have over what the different vendors or what life is like as a customer of the different vendors that you're considering. So I don't know, I think it's healthy that there's unique strengths and weaknesses. I think we have about 5 or 10 minutes, right? So
Yeah, we can continue on with this being kind of group therapy as the room.
Okay, so questions. I want to make sure we're addressing your biggest peer review questions, because the next area that I was going to go into was continuing on where Allyson started, which is how to turn reviews into a marketing strategy and think more strategically about that. That's where we're planning to go, but I want to also make sure we're addressing your biggest questions. Anything else from Zoom at this point? No?
She said it sounded a little political.
Yeah.
Oh, she didn't want she wants the syndication review site?
You gotta go to the reviews Illuminati to get that.
Well, I will say with the review, sorry. Jill, right? That was her name. So one thing that we have seen, because a lot of our clients are on multiple review platforms, and what they do is they could use the customers, and we've actually seen a really high percentage of people that are willing to review on one site, they'll review on another site, right? And so they've already done it once, so they'll do it for you again. And so we see that propensity across our client base is that, hey, they'll do it once, they'll do it twice. So that's not what you want to hear at all, but there is a high propensity for people that have already done one review to do another. So.
I feel like that slightly dilutes what you said before about the...
Right, but what I will say is that, so if they went on G2 and they did or any other site that was maybe slightly shorter or something like that, but if you're doing it on TrustRadius and you build out those custom questions, the answer is going to be different, right? It's all about the questions that you're asking, and that's really what builds the content.
I'll put the clips away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question, just if you all have any insight or advice on the best ways to go about asking for reviews, the best ways to frame it, anything like that.
Johnny, why don't we give you a chance so you're not always second? Do you want to take this one
like
first?
being second.
You like being second? Okay, all right. All right, who wants to jump in? We're going to let them joust now. Here. Who wants to
Yeah,
jump
sure.
in?
So I think people get very, very creative, and I think what I would say is where it's embedded already in your customer's workflow. So we have an integration with Pendo, so it's already in your product, right? And you're asking for that review. It's already part of it's already embedded in their process. So that's the easiest way to do it, is that you're not making the customer it's not something that lives outside their world. That seems like this extra thing that they need to do. But if you embed it into their process, then that makes reviews a lot easier to source. And so that's something that we are continually investing in at TrustRadius, is how do we embed review sourcing into your customer's workflow? And so the more opportunities that you can find to do that, the better.
So I'll add to that. It definitely, incorporate into your customer's workflow, incorporate it into your workflow. Everyone here, I heard some amazing presentations over the past couple days about the deep advocacy programs that everybody's building out. This is a component of that. This is a specific ask that works towards the same goals. Build it in there. Build raffles for your folks to encourage them to do it off. Have them do the what was everyone saying? Choose your own journey, right? Reviews should be a part of that program. This is not like a standalone thing that you have to sort of plan for. This is just another important advocacy activity for your customers to take part of.
Yeah, I would echo everything that's been said. I mean, we have integrations with Pendo, Medallia, and certainly advocate, putting in that workflow as long as it's a positive experience. You want to make sure that you're not triggering at a pain point or particularly frustrating part of the experience. But I would say even beyond that, this is something we try to practice. We dog food our own products, so you can go read G2 marketing solutions on G2, and we use that as a jumping off point when we have a particularly good sales cycle. If there's a good renewal, people have a lot of positive things to say. We ask them if they'd like to go leave a review. So really, I think starting there with the organic, starting with a positive jumping off point is a really great spot. Folks, if they're advocating you to in a sales meeting, then they're probably likely to do that online as well.
I'm gonna add.
Yeah, I was gonna do one. Yeah, sorry. I was just this is totally off. We're at a live event. We the most reviews that we get are actually when we go to our clients' events and we help them source it. So Obviously, that was hindered during the pandemic. However, now that events are picking back up again, I would definitely partner with whatever review sites that you're using and get them at your conferences, because your customers are already there, right? And you can gamify it, you can make it fun, and make it like a really cool experience. So now that live events are coming back, keep that in your head, because that's where we've seen the biggest volume and some of the best reviews, right? They're at your user conference, they're already thinking about you, they're thinking about how to use your product in a better way and wanting to learn more about it, right? So that's a perfect opportunity to source a review.
And you wine and dine them.
Yeah. And
They're drinking the brand Kool-Aid
Yes.
while they're writing the review.
So yes, get those reviews done.
And I'll add to that, on top of the, collecting reviews at an event, I think we all have programs to help you collect reviews at an event. One of the very cool things that you can do when we're just walking around talking to customers, or your customers are coming over to a booth to give a review, is have a call to action at the end of it. Would you be open to being a reference, or doing some kind of reference activity for this company? And so I can go to an event with our team, and we can collect 300 reviews from your customers just walking around on the ground, and then actually get you 50, 60 net new advocates who are willing to do other reference activities for you. So it doesn't actually need to be a drain on your referenceable customers. It can actually be a net positive when you're working with us at an event. That's a very strong strategy to use.
I know we all said that quality matters over quantity, but if your leadership cares about quantity, doing it at your own event is a really great way to get a lot in a short period of time.
Efficiency.
Any other questions before I fire away? Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the review not being the end, right? It's like the beginning. So what are your clients doing effectively with reviews once they're written to get mileage out of them, to get more value out of them, to put them to work, to address your strategic growth initiatives? Can you give some examples?
I'll start off. I mean, I think we have a whole content offering that's going to allow folks to package up their reviews, to put them on landing pages that will fit within their own branding, and that's turnkey. But I also think if you really want to get the most out of them, you're going to be figuring out ways to leverage those on your own, to have them all across your site, regularly on your social channels. It really, don't hide your light under a bushel, I guess I would say there. There's so many different ways to leverage them. So it starts there and then kind of builds into other ways that you can tie it in.
So one thing I'll say is, don't stop thinking about them as advocates just because they've written a review. Treat a review as advocacy. And what I mean by that is, the same way if you're looking for a reference, you're going to try and match somebody with the right use case, the right vertical, the right persona, whatever it is, and you're going to give somebody with a similar experience to the one that they have themselves, right? Use reviews in that way. Use reviews to be targeted. I'm sure everybody's got an ABM team at their company now, right? Reviews are probably one of the most effective ways to create content for ABM, right? ABM, everybody's got down the delivery, right? There's great ABM platforms out there. Everybody's got down, how do I choose the companies within ABM that we're going to go after? What most companies aren't so great at yet is creating targeted content at scale to make all of the rest of the ABM work worthwhile. Targeted content at scale. Think of reviews that way. Create targeted content from your customers at scale and use it afterwards. And this works really well with the customized questions and the deeper reviews. In addition, one of the things we do as a free service to our customers is we'll actually create a lot of derivative content from the reviews for you. So social cards for your social team to use, battle cards for your sales team. Work with your CSM, ask us to create content for you out of the reviews. We'll do most of it for free. We realized a long time ago that advocacy professionals are some of the most overworked and understaffed people. And
Really agree?
yeah, anybody agree? Yeah. So we built a lot of our offering around the idea that we need to do most of the work for you, or you don't have the cycles to actually create the content out of it and start disseminating it to all the right people and have all the conversations, because this is one out of 400 other things that you're doing. So we really built a high-touch customer success team around that knowledge to help you get some of that done.
So I already gave you guys the example of somebody that was kind of really using all of the content. So one of the things that Palmer was touching on is the content syndication, and really where that helps you is SEO, right? We actually look at a cost savings. We have this really robust SEO team in house, and they do some analysis for our customers, where we're actually saving them money on their paid search, right? And so that's huge if you can start showing that you're saving money as well from content syndication from the reviews. Our research team is also building kind of to what Danny was talking about, that customized content that you can use in other channels. That's so valuable. If you think about, I was a victim of Forrester, that you're paying $40,000 for this report, and then it costs $20,000 every year after to license it, and you're like, oh my gosh, this market report is like. But what we at TrustRadius will create this really great report for you. We'll work with you on it to look at market trends that you can use, all based on those reviews and kind of pulling all of that information together. And so I think it's like, how can you continue to make content? How do you work with your teams to distribute that content? And I think a lot of you guys have been talking about that throughout this entire conference. But I really think it starts with the teams here and being strategic and going to those teams and saying, okay, here's all this amazing content that I'm getting from the reviews. How do we use it in our channels? And because once you start doing that and you start aligning yourself to your teams and they start expecting that, you're really making review platforms much more strategic. And so that's what I would really think about is, how do you be proactive in, here's all these amazing reviews, content team, what should we be doing this? Should we get this person to, do a customer interview? Should we do video content, et cetera? Like, there's so much that you can do with it. But I think it starts with customer marketing, just being super proactive. And then also where we've seen our customers do really well, like I was saying, the intent data piece, the more you can align yourself with demand gen, the better. So people are gonna go to I think one of the review platforms we ever talked about is Capterra, right? It's pay to play, you're paying for leads, that's what demand gen wants. If you can go to demand gen and be like, hey, I created this really amazing profile, we're getting all these great intent signals, you align that to your demand gen person who's using an ABM platform, doing LinkedIn advertising, right? They're doing display, whatever it is. You can actually start showing that value to your demand gen person and really heighten your ABM strategy, because also when you look at intent data, you're going after the same accounts as your sales team. So you're like, hey, here are these amazing accounts that are bottom funnel researching our product or researching our competitors, and sales, BDRs, you go after these people. This is the air coverage I'm going to give you from a marketing point of view, and it all comes full circle where it's actually an ABM strategy, is when you have sales and marketing aligned. So I think one of the metas that I've taken away from this conference is, how do you align yourself to strategic initiatives, and that's huge, and how do you align yourself to revenue? Those are two really important strategies that I would take away from this.
I want to add one more thing in just the timeline of events here. It's very important. Don't create the reviews and then go to all your teams and say, hey guys, look at all this great content, here's what use it. Go to your teams, find out, what do we need your customers to say to win more deals, to attract more eyeballs, to convince more people that they should choose us over our competitors. What should that content be? And then try and get your customers, build the reviews around the content and the use cases that you have for it later. Align strategic initiatives, collect content, profit.
Yep, profit, make it.
Just fluff. All right. Any other questions? Kim, is that a question?
I have a question, kind of a technology piece of it, but one of the most frustrating parts for me is I work really hard to do reviews, and then they don't actually get published because of the unverified credentials piece of it. And it's a big percentage, in some cases Gartner's the worst, so not
Yes.
you guys with that,
Yes.
but it's a problem, and I know it's because of the LinkedIn credential piece, it's, verify your work email, it goes into
credentials couldn't be validated? That's the challenge? Okay.
So what she was asking for the people on the phone is that she was saying, hey, I work so hard for these reviews, but they can't be verified because of some technical difficulties. So where's the technology going? Because I work so hard for these reviews, but they're not being published because they can't be verified. And Gartner was the biggest offender of that, just for everyone on the phone. But that's, I would love to talk with you after this, because this is what one of the initiatives of our product team right now is how do we make that kind of login process, and like how do we, I think it's really about building more of like that community, and how are we giving people the tools to do that when they log in. And so we're working a lot on that right now. But I think in the interim, right, that's why we have that human touch. So we have researchers that are going through, they're reading all the reviews, they're doing the verified check, and there's just a huge human component. So potentially, like if there is an issue with verification, it could be solved by our research team because they're doing extra work on top of what already the technology is doing. So while the technology catches up, then we have the human element that gets in there and does the extra verification, and make sure, when we were talking about it earlier, making sure that there aren't fraudulent reviews. So let's talk. And I'd love to hear more about your ideas about the login, but that's something that we're very, very focused on.
So I've been working at IT Central Station for 7 years, so I was the 6th employee. I've literally never had a customer have a problem with that. I think the worst offender by far is going to be Gartner because of the way that they do things. I don't think you'll have an issue with that with any of our platforms, unless you have.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add there other than saying it's a fine line between making it, a very manual human process and then automating it all, because there's a lot of bad actors in the world, and we want to keep them as far away from our platforms as we can. So it's just bear with us. It's good intentions there, and we want to find the right balance that we're. Yeah, I mean I don't know the specifics there. I know we would typically try and have folks on site when you're doing those, like if you're doing it at a customer event, can help you verify it on the back end, but we'd be willing to do whatever we can to help when those situations arise.
All right, so why don't we just wrap up? I want to have each of you just tell us, we want to be thinking about the future here. What's something that we should anticipate, or what's something you guys want to do in the future without giving away any kind of secret strategies or anything? Like where do you see this space going? Because, I mean, every space is innovating. I'm sure this space is innovating as well. So now I'll let you decide who wants to go first.
Who wants to give away secrets first?
Who wants to? No, again, even if you just want to talk about how buyer behavior might evolve over time, do you think? I mean, because that's constantly changing. Any COVID impacts? Is this? I don't know. Just want to see if there's anything, or that you can say about predicting the future here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a stab at some buyer behavior trends that I think are holding true. That you used to see a pretty big difference in how SMB to mid-market to enterprise would behave, and I think those lines are all starting to blur. A lot of the percentages, even in time to purchase, buying committees, all of that. It's all starting to blur together, and we're really seeing the consumerization of B2B software happen in real time. And I think COVID accelerated that, if not just a little bit. So I think know that going into it, that you can't be thinking in the sort of the past mindset of, oh, we've got 9 months to work that one out. We're going to we'll figure out when it comes to it. It's like folks want to try it before they buy it, and they certainly don't want to be engaging with the sales team until they're ready to buy. And so I think I would sort of take that away as a broader, not necessarily a customer marketing insight, but just a broader software buying insight. And I don't think that's changing. If only it's going to just keep accelerating. So if your go-to-market teams are talking about product-led growth and how that fits into your mindset, then I think that you might be behind the 8 ball in a few years.
So I think I'm going to try and answer your original question without giving too much away about where we're going. A little bit about us. We were bootstrapped. We didn't raise any money. We reached profitability as a business, and we're cash flow positive. We just raised our first round of $30 million Series A. Hooray! But right now, we're looking at investing heavily in making the buying process easier for tech buyers, right? If you think about it, there's a million different places that they have to go online to get all of the information that they need, and we're trying to flatten that experience as much as possible and provide them with a lot more of what they need in one place. So look to it for us to continue around the same strategic direction that we've been going in, you know, extreme quality over quantity in everything that we do. Provide people with all of the information that they need to make a well-informed decision from one place, from an objective source. And everyone's still gonna go to vendors, right? They're still gonna go to you guys for information at a certain point, but I'd like to one day provide everyone with all of the information that they need outside of coming to you with us. It doesn't just have to be user reviews. There's a lot of really great things that we're building a fantastic community on our site, right? Technology purchases are not just about siloed products anymore, right? You look at a lot of larger companies, you're trying to sell solutions now, not just products, right? We have to all account for the solution sale and the fact that which products integrate with which products and how they work well together. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts is a really big part of the enterprise buying process moving forward. So look for us to continue to go deeper and provide more information for your customers that will help them make the decisions that they need for their business.
Yeah, and so I would think two things that I would leave you with is, one, the buyer journey is changing, right? Like the millennials they are self-nurturing and they're figuring this out on their own, and then they're coming to your site and they're already pretty much made a decision, right? So we did some research that like 50 to 60% of people have already made a decision by the time they're even coming to you and filling out like a demo request. If they're even coming to you, right? They're probably going to your, like you want to be in that consideration phase, and that's exactly where a few platforms are. And so where TrustRadius is really focused and where we're really positioned is for the buyer. And so we're helping them make those decisions because, you know, with product comparisons, helping them get those pieces of information that they need to actually compare software. And so at the end of the day, as we position for like the buyer and making it super easy for them to make the best purchase decision for their business and their growth, right? That's where you want to be. Those are the eyeballs that you want to be in front of, because you want to be at that consideration phase. Because if you're not there, right, you're going to be missing out on a huge trend of these buyers that are going to be using third-party validation, and without third-party validation is software reviews. So I would just think about it like that, as like this huge trend is happening. So how do you get in front of it, and then how do you really use that as a strategic growth initiative?
Strategic growth initiative. Yeah. I love how she threw that at the end of her sentence. All right, I think let's wrap here. What do you guys think?
Yeah.